Would you still watch my videos and other plant YouTuber videos if you knew that AI could solve all your plant problems? Well, recently, that's the question I've been asking myself, because I've been using AI in the greenhouse over the last few months. It's completely changed the way I do things in the greenhouse. So the question is, does that mean that me as a plant YouTuber is done for? Does that mean that nobody's going to watch plant YouTubers and other YouTubers in the future? Well, that's the question we're going to answer today. I'm going to go through 3 things that I've done recently that have been totally influenced, in fact 100% influenced by AI, and then we're going to discuss as to what that will mean in the future for content creators and for the way people watch platforms such as YouTube. So let's get into it. And we are in. So we're going to start with this Coelogyne cristata over here. So this is an orchid that I've had for 5 or 6 years. The leaf just fell off there. And as you can see, it's quite a big thing, big sprawling thing, and it's full of pseudobulbs, great big rhizome, connecting all these pseudobulbs together. They're all very plump. It's clearly a healthy orchid. Now, the only problem with this beautiful big orchid is that it's never bloomed, not even once in all the time that I've had it. Now, some people have absolutely no problem with this in the UK, and I've got to ask myself over and over again, how come? Why is that? Why is it not bloomed? It's always, to be honest, been pretty successful in whatever media I've put it in, and as you can see now, it's in a basket because it doesn't have big deep roots, it just sprawls across the surface. Okay, so how did AI help me? Well, the AI that I'm talking about in this case is ChatGPT. Now, I pay for the monthly version of ChatGPT because I want projects. I want to be able to go individually into different aspects of my life and search things up and have it remember those things, and it's easier for me to reference it. So I have something with tropical plants in there, one of the projects, and I asked it all about Coelogyne cristata, having told it, and this is the key thing, all about the conditions of my greenhouse. So it knows the light that I get, it knows the aspect, it knows where I am, it knows the maximum temperatures I get, it knows what happens in summer, what happens in winter, and it knows about the history of this plant. So then I of course asked it, why has it not bloomed? And what it did, in a matter of about 2.5 seconds, it came up with a big long description of what Coelogyne cristata actually needs, and I was able to check those things off and see what it was that I wasn't providing. And it came up with what I consider to be probably the reason why mine hasn't bloomed. So these particular orchids need a dry winter rest, which I always give it, but it also needs a cooler period. We're talking between about 5 degrees to 8 degrees Celsius through the winter. Now, what does it not get? What has it not got in 5 years? It's not got that cooler winter rest at such lower degrees. It has only got a minimum of about 12 degrees Celsius. So that to me is very highly probably the reason why flowering has not triggered. So over here we have a Restrepia gutturata, I think it is. Now, I've had this a few years again. It bloomed once for me, not very convincingly. Now, the top looks absolutely perfect. It looks like it's a really healthy plant with lots of nice new growth. However, I'll just have to put it down a second. When I lift it up, you'll see that it's only resting on top there. There are no roots whatsoever. All the roots had died off, and I've had to snip the rest of them at the bottom there. Now, why is it just resting on top of this moss? Well, that's because this is what ChatGPT actually suggested. And I have to say, in this case, this isn't something that was new to me. It was perhaps something I'd forgotten about. So when you get a particular environment like mine, what very easily and quickly happens is moss goes sour really quickly. And that does have this tendency to kill off the roots of orchids such as this. And you don't really know until you start to look at how long it is that the moss has been in there. So what I did was, to cut a long story short, I asked ChatGPT about it. The question is absolutely vital because you've got to give it as much detail as you can. And I didn't want to go and pop that up again into some new media, which is what I've done in the past, and it doesn't work. It never works. A really good tip is to just rest it on the surface like that. So it is surrounded by the moss at the place where the roots will come out, but the roots are being encouraged to come out. Usually what happens is if you do go and repot it up really tightly, it may well hit bark underneath or something that stays dry. You can't get moisture to the actual area that you want, whereas moisture goes to the rest of the pot and it doesn't dry out. It's something that if you're an orchid grower, you've probably experienced it over and over again. And in this case, I've done exactly what ChatGPT has told me to do, and I have rested it on the surface. So this moss is very loose here, and it's not going to stay moist for very long. It will dry out. I've not packed it all in. There's loads of holes around there. There's also some perlite in there. And I'm letting those roots breathe and get oxygen to them so that it will encourage some new rooting. And I'm pretty sure, because again, this is what it told me, that these Restrepias can do this and that they are really resilient in order to bring out these new roots. So again, another way that AI can help you when perhaps you wouldn't be able to specifically search for that particular problem on somewhere like YouTube. Okay, so this one up here is a Phragmipedium ainsworthii. Flowered really well for me for a couple of years and then has just been on the decline. And I did repot it, but what I actually had was a very large pot. And apparently with Phragmipediums, the main issue with them is keeping that moisture content not overly wet, but wet at the base or wet at the feet. So they like to have the feet in water, but they like the rest of the root system to dry out a little bit. It's a tricky balance without having it totally moist all the time. And what the AI did for me this time was give me a good idea of the kind of mix I could use. And from memory, it was something like chunky orchid bark. It gave me the exact proportions. It told me what proportions of perlite to put in. It suggested putting some charcoal in, which I did. And it also suggested putting some moss at the bottom so that would give it that wetness at the bottom without being overly moist all the time. So that's 3 situations where I've used AI recently in the greenhouse. So how does this change things? Well, before AI came along, what did you have to do? If there was something that you didn't know how to answer in somewhere like this with a plant, then you either had to join a society and go and ask other people what they did in particular situations. Not always an efficient way of spending your time, and of course you don't always come up with the right answer. They don't necessarily have the same environment that you do. So moving on from that, then you would have looked onto YouTube and you would have seen if YouTube could answer your question. But again, in my particular situation, when you're talking about plants that not everybody grows, it's not as easy to find a video that specifically answers your question, unless it's something that you can search for really easily. So if I was, say, growing a money plant, which lots of people grow, and I wanted to propagate it, then I'm likely to be able to find an answer to that because I will simply search for how do you propagate a money plant. There's going to be people who's made videos on that. But in the case of getting roots to reform on a Restrepia, that's not something that's going to be loads of videos on. So AI has come along and I'm now able to do that and specifically ask the question and give it all the information I need, and it will come up with a pretty good solution. Will it always tell me the right solution? Well, probably not. It's a little bit like sat-nav, isn't it? People used to say to me years ago, oh, why do you use sat-nav? It's going to lead you off a cliff somewhere, or it leads you down a one-way street the wrong way, but as time's gone on, it's got more and more accurate, and I can't remember the last time it actually took me in the wrong way. And this is the way AI is going as far as I can see. So let's think about the philosophical side of it. Has me using AI made it less of a rewarding hobby? Now, I've only been using it a couple of months in this particular scenario, and I can honestly say it's made it better. What I'm looking for when I'm in the greenhouse and I'm looking after my plants, I want a way to make it easier, less cost, more efficient, and the outcome is, well, there's two outcomes actually. One is not an outcome, one is the journey. I like to do things in the greenhouse, and I'm sure other plant people will agree with that. I like to be in here and I like to be messing about with plants, repotting, changing them, moving them about. And the other outcome is I like to see a healthy, flowering maybe, or leafy plant looking like I'm looking after it correctly. AI has helped me and is helping me to do that. So as far as I'm concerned, it's improving things. I don't want to see plants dying off. I don't want to be throwing my plants and my money away. So I think that is definitely a plus point. So are there any negative points? Well, does the fact that I'm doing this, and probably more and more people will do this as time goes on, does that mean that you will not see any plant YouTubers on YouTube anymore? Well, personally, I don't think it's going to stop people from making plant videos. It's not going to stop me from making plant videos yet. Why? Well, I think it will change how people watch and create content. I don't think necessarily that people will be going on YouTube to find the answers to the questions if AI can do it for them. I think people will be looking for something different. For example, I'll take you through my viewing for this week or this last week. Because I'm currently getting into begonias, and I'll just show you down here, this is my new begonia grow tent. Species begonias we're talking about. Because that's something that is an interest I've been trying to get into for a while, I've been recently looking at Don Miller, a very famous begonia grower and hybridizer who also looks after a big species begonia collection in Fort Worth in Texas. And I've been watching his videos, actually Summer Rain Oaks videos with him on it quite recently. I've been watching Alan Titchmarsh videos talking about spring bulbs for next spring, because that's what I'm doing. I've been watching videos on Joe Swift, who's taking his brand new 2.5 acre garden from pretty much wasteland into a newly designed garden over time. Why am I looking at them? Not necessarily to find the answer to my specific question, but because it's nice to see plants that you've not grown before. It's nice to see how other people grow plants. In the particular case of Don Miller, he was taking you through all the species begonias in this massive collection, which was really fascinating. And then he was taking you through all the hybrids, and I was interested in both of them. But the other reason that I want to watch YouTube videos is that I like to see people as well. It's not quite as good as being in the room with somebody, but it's the next step. Anybody who's worked online at home will probably tell you and back this up that you do miss having face-to-face interaction with people. And while YouTube isn't totally face-to-face interaction, it's better than nothing at all. If I was to completely get rid of my YouTube viewing and say, right, that's it, I've solved it, I'm going to use AI for everything in future and I'm never going to watch a YouTube video, there is definitely a big chunk of life there that I'm missing out on in terms of enjoyment from plants. I want to see other people and I want to see how they do it, even though I know I can find answers to my questions using AI. Okay, so it's over to you. What do you think about all this? Have you used AI yet in order to look after your plants? How have you done it? What have you asked it? How have you gone about it? How's it helped you? How's it changed you? Has it changed your YouTube viewing? Will you still look at plant YouTubers or use YouTube in the same way? What kind of content are you interested in watching now? Let me know what you think. And that's it for now. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.